The winter of 1933 arrived early in Prague, bringing a hush that blanketed every rooftop and crooked alleyway. Snow drifted in slow spirals over the Charles Bridge, settling on the stone figures that had stood watch for centuries. Lanterns flickered along the bridge's edge, casting patches of warm light onto the icy cobblestones. On one of those lantern-lit patches stood a girl of about 17, wrapped in a long navy blue coat. Her name was Eliska Novak, and every evening she came to the bridge. It was the only place she felt she could hear her own heart, clearly, sometimes whispering, sometimes aching, sometimes hopeful. And tonight, something in the air felt different, as if the city itself was holding its breath. She walked to her favorite spot along the railing, staring down at the Vltava River. The city lights shimmered on the surface, like restless stars. Eliska, her mother always said, "You are too young to spend your evenings wandering in the cold." But her mother didn't know the truth. Eliska wanted to forget the sound of the failing piano in their home. The piano her father once played before he fell ill. She walked to outrun the fear that one day their small world might collapse completely. But most of all, she walked for the letters she had never sent. Folded neatly in a wooden box beneath her bed, they were written to a boy she had once known, Jakub Steiner, the boy who used to play violin beside her father's piano. They hadn't seen each other in almost 2 years. His own letter stopped arriving months ago, and she had never sent hers, believing they would never reach him. As she leaned against the stone railing, she heard footsteps behind her, light, somewhat uneven, as though the person was hurrying. Eliska? Her heart stopped. Slowly, she turned. A tall figure stood beneath a lantern. Snowflakes clung to his dark hair and the shoulders of his wool coat. Her lips parted. Jakub. His smile was small at first, hesitant. Then his eyes warmed the way they always had. "Hello, Eliska." For a moment they just stood there, the world around them muffled by falling snow. She felt her fingers tremble. "I thought you were in Vienna," she finally managed. He stepped closer. "I was. And Budapest. And Munich. And then we stopped writing. I'm sorry. I should have written." Her throat tightened. "I kept writing to you." "You did." His eyes widened. "I never sent them," she said, the confession tumbling out. "I thought you wouldn't receive them, or that you might not want to read them anymore." "Why would you ever think that?" His voice lowered, carrying a warmth she had missed more than she dared admit. Jakub reached out carefully, his gloved fingers brushing hers. "Maybe some things changed," aside softly, "but not everything." He looked at her, his lips twitching into a half-smile. "I came here tonight hoping the city would help me find where I belonged again, and then I saw you standing here, exactly the way I remember." The wind whispered along the river. "Why did you come back?" Eliska asked. Citated. "My uncle decided to stay in Vienna for the winter. But I wanted to come home. I wanted to see Prague again." And his eyes met hers. "I wanted to see you." Her chest fluttered. Jakub took another step forward. "Eliska, when I was away, I realized something. Every time the audience applauded, I thought, something is missing." He exhaled shakily, and it was you. A gust of wind swept across the bridge, and Eliska shivered. "You're freezing," he murmured. "Come on." He offered his hand. She hesitated only a second before placing her hand in his. They walked to a small cafe near the town square, the warm light spilling onto the cobblestone streets like melted gold. Inside, a wave of heat washed over them, carrying the scent of cocoa and cinnamon. "Sit," Jakub said, pulling out a chair. Soon, 2 steaming cups of hot chocolate were placed before them. "Jakub, is your father still playing the piano?" he asked gently. She stiffened. "No," she whispered. "He's been ill for many months now." Jakub's expression darkened with concern. "I didn't know." "There was no reason for you to know," she said quietly. "Eliska." His voice was soft, almost wounded. You could never burden me. Not ever. He tapped his fingers on the table. Do you still play? She hesitated. Not often. We don't have the money to repair the piano. We'll fix it, Jacob said without hesitation. I want to hear you play again. His words sent a warm rush through her. After a long moment of quiet, Jacob leaned forward. Eliska, there's something else. I'm not staying here forever. My uncle wants me to return in the spring, but I don't know if I want to. Not unless... He exhaled shakily. Not unless I have a reason to stay. Her breath caught. What reason? She whispered. His gaze locked onto hers. You, he said. The single word lingered in the air, filling her chest with warmth and fear. Eliska, I came back because something was pulling me here. I don't want to leave again without telling you what I should have told you before I left. Her lips parted, but before Jacob could speak, the cafe door burst open. A man stumbled inside, shaking snow from his coat. He walked toward them quickly. Jakub Steiner. Jakub Stefanev. Yes. The man pulled a folded note from his pocket. From Vienna. Ergen. Jacob's face drained of color. He placed the note on the table and left as quickly as he came. Eliska stared at the envelope, dread coiling in her stomach. Jacob's trembling fingers reached for it. He opened it slowly, his eyes scanning the short message. His jaw tightened. His shoulders shook once. Then he closed the note carefully. Eliska! His voice was barely above a whisper. Something's happened. Snowflakes tapped gently against the window, quiet and cold, and the night shifted. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe for more. For a moment, the warmth of the cafe felt as though it had been swept away by the icy wind that entered with the messenger. The small space, once filled with the soft glow of lamplight and the quiet hum of a gramophone, suddenly seemed still, too fragile, like the world was waiting to exhale. Jakub held the folded note in his trembling hands. His expression had hardened in a way Eliska had never seen before. His eyes, usually warm and full of quiet brightness, now seemed shadowed, swimming with worry. Jacob, Eliska whispered, her fingers curling around the warm ceramic of a chocolate cup. What happened? He swallowed, the knot in his throat, visible even from across the table. My uncle, he finally said. He collapsed during rehearsal. His voice cracked. They think it's his heart. Eliska felt a familiar dread tighten her chest. I'm so sorry. Jacob exhaled shakily. I should never have left Vienna, he murmured. My uncle has been everything to me. Etuk, Main guided me, taught me music everything. Eliska leaned forward. Jacob, your uncle would want you to follow your heart. He would want you to be here if this is where you needed to be. Jacob's eyes flicked toward her, grateful but torn. But what if I only came here because... He paused, forcing in a shaky breath. Because I missed you so much I couldn't think clearly. Her heart fluttered painfully. The cafe door closed behind another customer, bringing a brief gust of cold air that made the lamps shiver. Outside, snow thickened, drifting in gentle waves. Jacob's fingers tightened around the note. I need to return to Vienna. The words hit her like a sudden rush of icy wind. So soon, she breathed. I should leave tonight, he said, staring into his untouched hot chocolate. Or at dawn. Her throat tightened. She had just found him again, and now she was expected to lose him. But she forced her voice to remain steady. Your uncle needs you. You should go. Jacob looked up sharply, as though expecting her to protest. When Sedidenti, something inside him softened and broke. Eliska. He reached across the table, taking her hand. I don't want to leave like this. Not again. Not without telling you something. A soft voice interrupted them. Is everything all right? The cafe owner approached, her warm eyes full of concern. Jacob mustered a faint smile. Thank you. It's just unexpected. The woman nodded gently, then returned to the counter, giving them space once more. But Jacob no longer seemed able to speak. At last, he whispered. Walk with me. She nodded. Of course. They stepped back into the snowy night. Lanterns lined the streets, casting long golden beams onto the snow-covered cobblestones. They walked in silence. Toward the old town square, Jakub. What will you do when you reach Vienna? Stay with him, he murmured. Help take over rehearsals. Keep the music school running until he recovers. And if he doesn't recover? She asked gently. He winced. Then the responsibility is mine. She nodded quietly. You've grown so much. Have I? His voice was small. Yes, she said softly. But you're still you. He stopped walking. Snowflakes landed softly on his hair. Iliska, before I go, I need you to understand something. He took both her hands, warming her fingers in his. These past months, every time I stood on a stage, every time my uncle praised me, I kept thinking of you. Her heartbeat stumbled. I thought of the courtyard where we played together, he continued, his voice trembling with raw honesty. I thought of your smile, and I realized something that terrified me. What? She whispered. I realized that no matter where I went, my heart stayed here, with you. Her lips parted, her pulse fluttering wildly. Iliska, I came back to Prague, because I love you. The world seemed too slow. I know I should have told you earlier, he said. I was a coward. I kept thinking that once I became better at the violin, then I would be worthy of telling you how I felt. But when the days grew longer and emptier, I realized the most important thing wasn't becoming worthy. It was being honest. His voice softened. I love you. I just needed you to know before I leave. Iliska took a shaky breath, feeling the weight of her own unsent letters. I wrote to you, she whispered, over and over. I wrote that I missed you, that music didn't sound the same without you. Her voice broke. Jakubla lifted her chin gently. That you what? He asked. She swallowed. That I loved you too. His breath faltered, a trembling cloud in the cold air. He lit before either of them could say another word. The large clock tower began to toll the hour, its deep sound filling the space between them. Jakub stepped closer, but a horse-drawn carriage clattered into the street. A man inside shouted urgently to the driver. Jakub turned his head sharply. That's the carriage to the night train, he said, shock in his eyes. It leaves earlier when the weather worsens. Fear surged in her chest. You have to go. He shook his head. I don't want to. Not now. You must, she insisted, placing her hand on his cheek. Your uncle needs you. He closed his eyes against her touch. Iliska promised me something. She nodded. Anything? When I come back. Promise you'll still be here. Promise you won't forget tonight. Her lips trembled. I couldn't forget you if I tried. And I'll write. Every week. She pressed her forehead against his for a brief, fragile moment. And this time, I'll send mine. The carriage driver shouted again. Jakub stepped back reluctantly. I'll come back, he said firmly. I swear it. Then he turned and ran. Iliska stood frozen as he reached the carriage and climbed inside. He looked back just once, his eyes locking with hers across the distance. She lifted her hand and lifted ease. The carriage door slammed shut. The horses jerked forward, and the carriage rolled away into the whiteness of the winter night. Iliska stood there long after the sound of wheels faded, long after the snow began to gather on her coat and eyelashes. Only when she could no longer feel her fingers did she turn back toward the bridge, walking slowly beneath the lantern light. And somewhere far away, in a train speeding toward Vienna, a boy held a crumpled note in his pocket and whispered her name into the winter air. After Jakub left, the days in Prague unfolded in a quiet, snowy hush. The city's red rooftops were covered in white, muffling every sound until it all felt like a dream. But inside our home, time was heavy. Each morning, I'd wake up and draw circles on the frosty window, pretending I could sketch the warmth I missed. Then, I'd listen for my father's coughs. Some days, they were light, but on others, They shook the house, and those were the days that terrified me. I started writing letters to Jacob in Vienna. The first one was hesitant. "Dear Jacob," I wrote, "Prague is quiet without you. I miss your music. I miss everything." I sealed it, and for the first time, I didn't hide it. I mailed it. Then I mailed another and another. Some were long, full of stories about this city. Others were short, just a few words from my heart. "I think of you each time the snow begins to fall." I didn't expect quick replies, but I still hoped. Every evening, I'd walk to the Charles Bridge, the cold air a welcome sting. It cleared my mind until only one truth remained. I loved him, and I would wait. About 2 weeks later, a small, damp envelope was waiting on our doorstep. My heart pounded as I tore it open. It was from him. "My dearest Eliska," he wrote. "Your letters reached me." Every word felt like a hand pulling me home. Miss you. More than I thought possible. I pressed the letter to my chest. He wrote back, remembered. From then on, our letters were lifelines stretched between Prague and Vienna. His handwriting was sometimes rushed, evidence of long night by his uncle's bedside. He wrote, "I dream of our music together. Please wait for me." And I always answered. One evening, after mailing another letter, a cold wind seemed to carry a warning. My father had been coughing more. My mother's eyes were shadowed with worry. I went to the riverbank and whispered into the wind, "Please, let him recover. Please let father stay." The next morning, my father smiled weakly at me. "You've been walking too much at night," he said. "The bridge cannot solve all your troubles." I admitted I went there to feel closer to someone. Understood. "Ah, young love," he chuckled, before a deep, rattling cough seized him. Fear tightened in my chest. Later that day, a parcel arrived. It was from Jacob. Inside a small wooden box was a beautiful violin bow, with a note that said, "This belonged to my uncle. He wanted me to have it, but I want you to have it too." I rushed to my father's side. Examined it, size wide. "This is not just a gift," he whispered. "This is a piece of someone's soul." But the joy was short-lived. My father's fever rose. He grew weaker. The doctor's words were grim. He must rest. Someone must always stay with him. 2 days later, another letter came from Jacob. "My uncle is sleeping more often now," he wrote. "But your letters give me strength. Please keep writing." Tears blurred the words. That night I wrote back, "I am waiting, but I am afraid. My father is growing weaker. Hurry back to me." Weeks passed. The letters became less frequent as winter storms delayed the mail. The silence was unbearable. One evening, on the bridge, the cafe owner rushed toward me, breathless. "A message came from Vienna," she said, pressing a note into my hand. My fingers shook as I read it. Jacob's uncle had taken a turn for the worse. The doctors didn't expect him to last the week. "I am trying to stay strong," he wrote. "Please do not lose faith in me." My breath caught in my throat. That night, standing alone on the bridge as snow fell silently around me, I whispered, "Please, please, don't take them both." My tears mixed with the falling snow. The world felt so fragile, and yet, deep inside, a small flame of hope still trembled. Hope that winter would end. Hope that the people I loved would return, and hope that the next letter from Vienna would not be a goodbye. The first hint of dawn arrived softly, creeping over the rooftops of Prague like a shy visitor. A faint lavender glow touched the frozen tiles and brushed the drifting snowflakes with a quiet golden sheen. The city was still half asleep, wrapped in winter's hush, but the old Prague bridge was already awakening. The river below murmured in a sleepy voice, shifting beneath thin cracks of ice. Elena stood near the eastern arch, wrapped in her long wool coat. She had been awake for hours, pacing her small room, replaying every moment from the night before, the music, the laughter, the brief touch of Stefan's hand. Each memory made her heart rush like a startled bird. Now, as the cold air kissed her cheeks, she breathed out slowly, watching her breath swirl into the waking world. Today could be the morning everything changed. Stefan had asked her to meet him here at dawn. Tomorrow. This bridge. At first light, he had said, his voice quiet and hopeful. And now she waited. The snow drifted down around her, as if the sky itself whispered encouragement. She traced the frost patterns on the parapet, wondering if other travelers had stood here just like her, trembling with anticipation. Then she heard light footsteps. She turned. Stefan approached, his coat dusted with snowflakes, a violin case slung over his shoulder. His hair was windswept, but his eyes were warm, meeting hers with a softness that felt like the first chord of a familiar song. "Elena," he said quietly. Her pulse fluttered. "Jewel came," he smiled. "So did you." For a moment they just stood there, admiring the dawn. The air between them felt delicate, something to be held with gentle hands. "I wasn't sure if last night," she began, her voice trailing off. "I meant every word," he said, his tone certain. "The music we shared, what I felt it, wasn't imagination." Elena lowered her gaze, warmed by his sincerity. The snow fell softly, touching the space between them like tiny blessings. Stefan stepped closer. "There's something I want you to hear." He set his violin case on the railing and opened it with care. The polished wood of his violin gleamed in the faded sunrise. He lifted it gently, as though it was sacred. "This isn't just any song," he murmured. "I wrote it last night. For you." Elena's breath caught. "For me." "Eh?" Nodded. "There was something in the way you played in the square, the softness, the ache. It stayed with me." She watched as he set the violin beneath his chin. Then he began to play. The first notes rose like the lifting of a curtain, quiet but filled with a swelling tenderness. The melody drifted through the chilly morning air, weaving among the snowflakes. It was handily warm. Intimately, Elena pressed a hand to her chest. The music carried the timid bloom of affection, the hope of something new, the ache of loneliness slowly healing. She recognized pieces of herself in every measure. Stefan closed his eyes as he played, lost in the world the music was creating. The melody swelled briefly, then thinned into a fragile sigh, as though exhaling the softness of a dream. Tears pricked Elena's eyes. The song was beautiful, carrying all the unspoken things she herself had been too shy to admit. When he lowered the bow, the silence that followed felt full, holding the echo of what they had just shared. "It's lovely," she whispered. "I've never heard anything so full of hope." Stefan looked at her, his brow soft. "It was your presence that inspired it." "Elena," he said quietly, "ever since I arrived in Prague last year, I've been searching for something. I didn't know what. I thought it was a new direction, a chance to escape my past. But now—" His voice shook. "I think it was a person." Her heart fluttered wildly. "Stefan," he stepped closer, until their breath mingled in the winter air. "I don't want to frighten you," he whispered, "but you're the first person who's made this city feel less cold." "I've felt the same," she said softly. "Since last night and even before, when I first saw you playing, I felt something too." Stefan's eyes brightened with relief. "Then maybe we don't have to be alone in this city anymore." A burst of laughter echoed from across the bridge, and they stepped back slightly, the fragile stillness broken. Stefan cleared his throat. "Would you walk with me, just for a while?" She nodded. They strolled slowly, their footsteps soft on the fresh snow. The scent of bread from a distant bakery and the faint bell of a morning tram filled the air. "Why did you really come to Prague?" Elena asked. Stefan hesitated. "I grew up in a very strict family. My father wanted discipline, not passion. I felt like I was suffocating. I left without looking back." "It must have been terrifying," she said. "It was," he admitted, "but now I'm glad I did." They reached the middle of the bridge, where stone statues stood like silent guardians. Elena leaned on the parapet, gazing at the water. "Stefan, she said softly. What happens now? He moved beside her. I don't know. But I know I want to see you tomorrow. And the day after, and as many days as you'll allow. And if I said I wanted the same, she whispered. Then, he breathed, I'd be the happiest man on this bridge. She laughed. That's not a very competitive group. He grinned. True, but I'll still take the title. He gently lifted her chin with his gloved fingers. Elena, he murmured. May I? She understood. Her breath caught, but she nodded. Their lips met softly, a light, tentative kiss full of quiet promise. When they parted, the world felt brighter. Stefan brushed a stray snowflake from her hair. You've given me something I didn't think I'd find. Say, Esmilde. And you've given me a dream I thought I was too foolish to hope for. The dawn had fully arrived, painting the city in pale gold. The old Prague Bridge stood strong, a witness to centuries of stories and... Now there's... Stefan offered his hand. Elena took Italiano, and together they walked toward the awakening city, snowflakes swirling around them like blessings. Their footsteps faded into the hum of Prague, but the melody Stefan had written born of hope, longing, and love seemed to echo in the air long after they were gone. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more tales from around the world. We'll see you in the next one.